exactly happened in Israel this weekend? And are Israelis the only victims of this tragedy? And besides, what does that have to do with Black people and the broken ish we are currently dealing with? Well, I'm glad you asked, y'all, because we are talking about it after the break.
Brokers, welcome to another episode of Brokish, where we talk about the unbelievable ish this country has done to keep us broke. Now here are your hosts, Amber and Erica.
Hello, brokers. I'm Amber.
And I'm Erica.
And today on Brokish, we are talking current events. We are coming to you all discussing the conflict, or I guess we can officially call it a war, because the state of Israel has declared war on the Gaza Strip. So the war between Israel and Palestine, that is...
Amber, I have a bit of deja vu, because we talked about this before. I mean, it hadn't been...
It was last year.
Yeah.
It was last year.
This before. And not that these things go away, right? But I think it'll be interesting for me to see how maybe my views have changed or what is different now than from a year ago when we talked about it.
Yeah. And this time we're focusing on something slightly different. The last time we talked about it, we tried to give you guys a historical context so you could appreciate sort of how we got to where we were. But today we are focusing on the white supremacy political playbook and how the same tactics they use on us, they use everywhere across the globe. That is why Liberation is a group project, because they doing the same stuff everywhere to everybody who does not fall under the umbrella of white.
Yes. And as one of my grandmas used to say to me all the time, you would ask her how she was doing. She said, it's the same soup. I'm just warming it over. And I feel like it's the same soup. They just warming this shit over. So
Grandma had a word. That's the word right there. Well, before we start, sis, how you doing? Your looks good. Your hair is hairing.
Do I?
The skin is skinning.
Okay.
I mean,
the skin is not skinning. Thank you. I appreciate you, Amber. The skin is not skinning. I don't know. You can put the little filters on. So I don't know if you can see that I am peeling. Because I like to think that Brokish is a safe space, but I know it's not, because it's going to be somebody on YouTube that's going to drag me after what I say. But Amber, so you probably know I went down to the people and I did, Amber. I got me some fillers and I got me some Botox. Like I know,
but I wasn't going to tell nobody because that's not my business.
I can't get mad in the forehead anymore. Anyway, and then the doctor gave me some medicine, but I'm peeling. So my skin is super flaky. I hope it's because it's going to reveal like the skin of a baby's butt, after it's done peeling. But right now it's a bad process. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So it's giving chemical peel.
It is not that to that degree, but yes. But in spite of that, Amber, I am excited because I just celebrated 17 years of marriage.
Yes. Happy anniversary.
Yes. Thank you. I still like him. He says that he still likes me. So I'll take that as a good sign. I'm very excited. We never do too much on our anniversary. I'm not really into it in that way, but we went to a new spot. I had my belly out. So yeah, I was very excited about that. And you know what? I just still feel like I'm in love, Amber. And I love that for me.
That's a blessing. Yeah. I love that for you too. I mean, rip her out the plastic. She been acting brand new out here with her belly out, Botox in. No. I love it. Yes.
Look. And I should have waited till October because that's when all the people be having the Botox specials. I messed around and didn't wait. I could have got 20% off. But that is a word for brokish. But next time I'm gonna wait till the sale come.
Well, I need y'all to be in prayer for me, and I hope that I'll be able to make it to 17 years because y'all, when I got home today, I hit my husband's car. Okay.
Amber, was his car moving?
No, but see what happened is, and So I tried to blame it on him, but then I forgot. So when we went out yesterday as a family because my kids was out of school. I drove home. So I'm the one technically that did park wrong. I parked over the line. So it was like kind of my fault on both sides. And I forgot about that because when he came outside, I was like, well, I did hit your car. I said, but you parked wrong. And he was like, actually, you parked wrong because you're the last person to drive my car. And then that's when I remembered, and I was like, oh, now I got to go in the house and start turning tricks and stuff because I could tell he was mad. I could tell he, he was hurt. He was hurt, and I got him. I gave him a good lick. I rat tat tatted in the back.
Oh, okay, we get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So y'all pray for me. Pray for my husband because he's not well. He's not well.
Wow. But Amber, I thought in y'all's villa that it wasn't even possible. Y'all had so much space in the garage. Like, I didn't even think it was possible for you to hit a car. Like, I'm shocked over that. Like, you must have really parked bad.
That's what happens when you don't know what you're talking about. See, I was parking in the driveway. I wasn't even parking in the garage. And
I know you got a big driveway too.
Well, it ain't that big because I hit him. Shit. So just pray. We gonna be on here. We gonna make it to 17 in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Yeah. But Amber, so let me tell the brokers about what happened to Brokish.
Tell them because I ain't the only one being reckless in these streets, apparently.
Y'all, I was on my phone and I don't know what I was looking for, but occasionally I'll search for Brokish on the Apple Podcast or whatever. Maybe I'll send in a link to somebody. I don't remember. So I put the name in and another podcast comes up with the name Brokish. And I'm like, y'all, what they doing out there? Because we know that we got the trademark for Brokish. So I'm just like, how y'all out here using our name for y'all's podcast? Well, y'all know we got the name and we got the name trademarked.
And we got to tell all of this, y'all. It's not just the y'all. It's another Black woman, child.
Well, so now Amber got to be all lawyerly and go out there and do stuff so that we can make sure that we protecting our name.
But I was pre-lawyerly. So I sent a very nice email giving all praises to God, who is the head of our lives first, because that is what we do when we have issues with other Black women in these streets. I didn't even say I was a lawyer. I didn't even come in that spirit. So we are very hopeful at this juncture that we can resolve it and that both the platforms can continue to flourish and grow. And so, because me and Erica, we have retired. We don't fight no more. Well, she ain't never fought.
No.
She ain't never fought. But, I'm out here trying to be godly and live right. And I really ain't fought that much. I fought my line sister. I fought in junior high school. But, we out the game. So we don't want to, we can't be out here doing all that. We can't be doing all that.
No, don't want to, don't need to. But yeah, I'm just like, y'all, I didn't even think I was gonna ever have to like flex with that. But now I gotta pull out the paperwork.
The receipts, the literal receipts.
Yes. So we're gonna keep y'all posted. My question though, Amber, is why none of the brokers didn't tell us? Because I feel like that means people not really out there listening and watching because didn't nobody tell me.
Okay, well, kind of sort of they did because I got told, but what happened is when I got told and I looked it up in my phone, I didn't see it. So I was like, child, I don't know what they talking about. And then when I got the screenshot, I was like, oh, that's what they talking about. Oh, okay. So we're not gonna give y'all too much smoke because technically we did get put on. But y'all was a little slow about it because our good sis is on like episode 9. So what y'all doing? What y'all doing?
Well, yeah, we're gonna keep you posted and see how it's all going. So hopefully we will be able to resolve that conflict and the conflict in Amber's home is what we also hoping that we can resolve.
Well, speaking of conflicts, this is one conflict that we're gonna tell you up front we cannot resolve. Okay, what is going on right now in Israel? But even though we cannot resolve it, what we hopefully can do is shine a light for y'all today on the playbook of oppression that is universal to Black and brown people. Okay, because it is so predictable. So for those of you who don't know, last Saturday, there was an unprecedented attack on Israel by the Hamas group out of Palestine. And why I call it unprecedented is because usually they attack and the weapons are intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome, and not a whole lot happens. But this particular attack was brutal because it happened at an outdoor music festival. And so not only were approximately 1,200 people killed, but hostages were taken, and it is the deadliest attack of Israeli citizens on Israeli soil. So obviously it has garnered nationwide attention and brought the conflict between Palestine and Israel back to the forefront of the international political discussion. And so obviously we live here in the United States, which is Israel's fiercest supporter, their most ride or die
benefactor,
all the things. And so, as you can imagine, the news here has a very particular narrative to it, a narrative of unqualified, unequivocal support of Israel, unqualified, unequivocal condemnation of Hamas as a representative of the Palestinian people. And this binary has left a lot unspoken. And so what we want to do here today is sort of clear up the record, but also show why, just like most things, at the root of this is white supremacy.
Absolutely. And Amber, of course, I'm guessing that maybe your kids have been asking you about it. My kids have been asking me about it. So we've also been sort of talking about it as a family. And one of the things I normally tell my kids whenever they come to me with a question about something, and I'm like, always follow the money and follow America's hand. Because usually America is the villain in the story. I'm just like, whatever the story is, usually it's America or America as a proxy for the West that is the villain in a tale. And I feel like that's the same thing that is happening here. But anyway, so go ahead and tell the people now.
So before we get started, because, we live in a soundbite generation, people don't listen to full, complete sentences. People love to cherry pick statements. Let's make a few statements right off the rip here. Brokish Podcast is not on here today.
Will we agree on all of these things?
I think we will. Brokish Podcast is not on here today, caping for Hamas. We are here standing in solidarity with Palestinian people, okay? And when we talk about Hamas as a terrorist organization, which they are, it is very important, though. Hamas ain't shit, Erica. I mean, that ain't the hill we got to die on. Hamas ain't shit, and Palestine, but Hamas ain't shit, okay? We ain't got to die on that hill. But if you're going to talk about the fact that Hamas ain't shit, you also have to talk about how we got here. Okay, so don't go back and take no
the conditions that created a Hamas,
and not only the conditions. Let's just clear something up since we're talking about it. Y'all remember in New Jack City when Nino Brown took the stand at the end of the movie, and he said, "Ain't no poppy fields in Harlem," to the prosecutor that was prosecuting him. Now Erica doesn't remember because Erica. She's special. She's an outlier, okay? But for those of us who actually watch classic Black movies, okay, y'all remember that, right? When Nino Brown said, "Ain't no poppy fields in Harlem," and what he was getting at was he did not go and bring the heroin and the crack cocaine to Harlem. It had to get there somehow, right? It got there somehow. Now, y'all, I'm sure have heard the term that Gaza is the largest open-air prison in the world. And the reason why people refer to Gaza as the largest open-air prison in the world is because it is completely under siege, which means that there is only one way in and one way out. And really, it's not a way out because it is heavily policed and secured by the Israeli government. That is why food, supplies, resources are so scarce in Gaza. So the question becomes, if Gaza is an open air prison that is under siege 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, how in the hell is Hamas getting money to get weapons? Unless corrupt government actors like Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, is funneling money to Hamas to undermine the creation of a legitimate Palestinian government, to actively disrupt. No, this is we're going to post the receipts. This is from the newspapers in Israel are writing this in condemnation of Benjamin Netanyahu. This is not a secret that he has cozied up to Hamas. In addition to cozying up to right-wing nationalists, he is basically the Trump of the Middle East. And so the question becomes, how does a terrorist organization that is headquartered inside of a city that is completely under siege get the money or get the access to weapons to kill 1,200 people unless somebody giving it to them? Okay? Ain't no poppy fields in Harlem, y'all. And so when we talk about disrupting the right to self-determination, if every time we talk about Palestinian liberation, we're talking about terrorism and we're having people in a position of having to defend Hamas full stop, then we never get down to talking about the fact that the Palestinian people are without autonomy. They are without self-government. They are without what they have been asking for this entire time, which is liberation and agency as a people. But if you are funding and funneling money and resources to terrorism to disrupt that, you're doing that on purpose and you're complicit with whatever the terrorists do.
Uh-oh. The views expressed by no. all that you just said, allegedly.
I got my receipts. I got them and we're going to post them. But to the point of following the Western money, okay, we cozy up to Israel. We fund Israel. We give them all of this money and we prop up leaders like Benjamin Netanyahu, who is trash. And what we know is that he will not, under any circumstance, support a liberated Palestine. And he is doing everything in his power. He has gone on record saying he will do everything in his power to disrupt a Palestinian government. Well, clearly, cozying up to Hamas is the best way to do that. Because if we frame Hamas as the representative of the Palestinian people, it's very hard to feel sorry for them when they die. It's very hard to feel sorry for them when they are starved to death. It is very hard to feel sorry for them when they are displaced from their homes and dispossessed of their property and their belongings, because we are chasing the tail of terrorism instead of talking about the fact that you have people who are living under siege.
Yes. And a couple of things. So back when you were talking about, here are our statements, right? So I'd like to add to that in terms of course, we are also not here in the spirit of anti-Semitism, right? So when we are talking about Israel, we are talking about the nation state. We are not talking about the Israeli people. And we also know that there are more. I think a lot of times we talk about Israel and we talk about it as though the only people there are Jewish people, ain't nobody else. And I think we also need to stop doing that, in the same way that when we talk about this country, a lot of times and the country itself talks about Christian people when we shouldn't be doing that. So anyway,
Right.
we're not anti-Jewish, we're not anti-Semitic. This is not related to the Jewish people. This is related to the nation state of Israel. So I wanted to be clear about that. But one of the things that's interesting for me, Amber, just in terms of, I be trying to make connections to my schoolwork,
Come on,
anyway.
make them.
Is the idea of, in general, colonialism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you talk about it within the context of Black people and the internal colonies in which Black people in this nation live, and then we look at the settler colonies that exist in places all around this world, but specifically now we're talking about Palestine. So talk us through sort of that relationship that exists in terms of colonizer, colonized people, and how we might be able to have solidarity once we can start to see ourselves in the same struggle, being oppressed by the same regime, actually.
One of the, that is the most important question that anybody will ask all evening. Because one of the things that I deeply resent about this conversation is how we have been conditioned by the American media to start in the middle of this story.
Yes.
The modern roots of the national or the creation of an Israeli nation state, the modern state of Israel, is inextricably related to white racialized terror. And the fact that we do not start at the beginning of that story, the story of Jews being tormented in Europe, the story of Jews being tormented in Russia, the story of people like Edward Balfour and Winston Churchill actively conspiring to encourage Jewish mass exodus from Europe, not because they wanted the Jews to be safe, but because they wanted to not be around them. And so when we talk about the need for a Jewish state, the need for a Jewish homeland, the need for the Jews to have a place of refuge, what we don't fill in at the end of that sentence is because white people were terrorizing them. And I think that that is part of the whitewashing of history that is so problematic in the reframing of what is happening here. Because,
yes, all of that, yes. But I'm just like, we also gonna get to the part of the story where just because you're being oppressed don't mean you get to be the new oppressor.
Correct. That is absolutely true. But I just want to say, like, that is the part that baffles me, just even in how Jewish people tell the story and how Israeli people tell the story, quite frankly. Like, I think that's the second part of it, because you know that you ain't never gonna get a straight answer on whether they become an oppressor or not. I mean, the facts are there. You can listen. No, I'm talking about from them. I'm talking about what we can agree on both sides. So the part that bothers me is why we don't talk about that. Because when we talk about Jews needing a homeland, they had a homeland. Jewish people have been in European countries working, contributing to society, contributing to politics, building successful businesses, working, doing all the things for centuries. And they were terrorized by white people for no reason other than the fact that they were Jewish. And so I just think that one of the reasons why this story is so problematic is because we don't start at the beginning, right? We don't start at the beginning that the same racialized terror that has inflicted harm on Black bodies, the same racialized white terror that was behind the transatlantic slave trade and redlining and the war on drugs and all the things, it's the same white racial terror. It's the same.
Yes, but the big difference for me is that you're right. We live under the same terror by the same regime, but Black people also didn't go like on a land grab, like, oh, we're being terrorized in the world, so let's go displace and terrorize some other people. Like that shit never happened.
But
And I feel bad that when we point that out, that's when the anti-Semitism comes in, right? Then it's like, you're against Jews. And I'm like, no, I'm against oppression.
But also, I do think it's a little more nuanced than that, because even in the first and second aliyahs, which happened, or aliyahs, I haven't spoken Arabic in a while, but the initial mass exodus from Europe that happened in two waves, the first aliyah and the second aliyah, I have to say, For the most part. Now, there was some conflict. I'm not trying to revise history.
I'm specifically talking about Palestine.
No,
right?
I know what you're talking about. What I'm saying is, even when Jews first in mass exited Europe and came to the Middle East and settled in Palestine, largely they lived in relative peace with the Arabs that were there. The second part of what you're talking about, the evolution into oppressor, that was also stoked by white people. That's what I'm saying. Like, even as the Jews came in mass during the first and second aliyahs to Palestine, yes, there was conflict. Yes, there was some violence. Yes, I mean, the redistribution of land was an issue. There was disagreement amongst the Arabs and the Jews. I don't want to say that that's not true. But in terms of just rabid violence, rabid conflict, that was not the case. Jews and Arabs lived in relative peace with each other, even as the immigration was happening. It was white people stoking the division, particularly the British, to undermine the Ottoman Empire, to expedite the decline of the Ottoman Empire. They stoked the tension between the Arabs and the Israelis, and they wanted to create the state to offset Ottoman influence in the region and to give Europeans the ability to control what was happening.
Sure.
And so I want to be clear about that. It's not just that, oh, the Jews came and then there became a problem of a displacement. Yes, that was an issue. And yes, that did create conflict. But even during that conflict, Jews and Arabs were residing together in relative peace with each other. It was white people who stoked the violence and the conflict between Arabs and Jews when they started doing disproportionate displacement of Arabs, specifically to stick it to the Ottomans so that they could gain influence in the region.
Yes, and thank you, because of course, and again, I'm not painting with a broad brush, right? I'm just merely talking about the land grab, the violence, all of that has happened at sort of against the Palestinian people, right? In terms of them losing their sovereignty, them not being able to have, and even today, right? Literally having, oh no, you live here, no, you don't. Like that sort of thing. That happens today, and it's happened since Israel has been a country since, I guess, 1948. That has been happening, right? And probably before then too. And so that's the part I mean in terms of that transition from, oh yeah, we have been oppressed, of course, as Jewish people. And then now we all of a sudden don't remember that and think it's okay to be like, we're going to take away your sovereignty, take away your.
Yeah, no, I think it, and again, the playbook is all the same. It's this, when you get oppressed people to drink the Kool-Aid and align themselves with their oppressor, that is not new. I mean, it's the same way you had overseers on plantations. This is all the same playbook, right? This is all the same playbook. And so, yes, that has happened. And I think what is also tragic is that when you take resources and you intentionally make them scarce, it's very easy then to, I want to pick my word carefully here, to influence people to buy into a whitewashed, revised narrative of history. Because very rarely do we start this story from the beginning and tell it in context. And I think that is in large part because the scarcity of safe havens, the scarcity of literal places where Jewish people could go without being terrorized, it caused them to drink the Kool-Aid. And so now it's like, well, how did they become the hero in y'all's story? Because literally less than a century ago, 6 million Jews were killed by the same people who are caping for y'all now. And they're not caping for you because they care. They're just caping because they hate the brown people more than they hate y'all at the present moment.
And Amber, for me, so two things. One, I don't know if do they hate the brown people? Absolutely. But if I just think about this again within the context of, is America, the United States, always the villain? We know that so much of what happens in Israel is the United States, the West, protecting their interests in that part of the world, right? Like all of the money and the resources that get sent to Israel in terms of, again, money, resources, weapons, whatever the things are, is because they want to make sure that they are strategically placed to be able to protect the resources that exist over there, so that they have the right military presence, through the IDF, right? It's not the United States, but through the IDF, all that happening. So I do think that, yes, they hate the brown people, but also capitalism. I'm just protecting property, right? I'm protecting the interests that I have over there. But the second thing that you talked about is scarcity of resources. And the thing that bothers me a whole lot, there's a lot that bothers me a lot about this whole thing, right? But one of the things is that people are like, oh my gosh, they're killing innocent civilians. And first of all, when you have a conflict, civilians are going to die. Like that's just a thing that happens. If there's a war and if there is violence and people are fighting for their self-determination, for their sovereignty, there's going to be violence. But what I find interesting is how the media says on the one hand that these innocent civilians are being killed. And then on the other hand, they say without irony that Israel is like, we are cutting off food, we are cutting off water, we are
Yes.
cutting off electricity, which I don't know who gets hurt by that if not civilians. And that is a way that you can kill civilians, is by shutting off access to food
And that is a
and water.
violation of international law.
Absolutely.
You can't do
But
that.
well, they can, and they are, and that not only are they doing it, but they told us they was going to do it,
And they have
saying,
done it.
and they saying, watch me work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the contradictions are so fascinating to see in real time, that the things that we say that we're okay with and the things that we're not okay with. Because if we were merely viewing this from the perspective of people protecting what is theirs, what they have a right to, their own homes, in a country full of stand your ground ass laws, we understand that if somebody come, Amber, you're supposed to take arms and stop them, right? Ain't that what the people done told us? You live in Texas. They done told you that. It's your castle.
Yeah.
So I just find it fascinating that when certain groups of people are like, oh, okay, that's the energy you're going to come with. And then the people are like, well, we're going to meet the energy. And then the white people are like, whoa, wait a minute. Like,
Yeah.
we supposed to do that, but y'all not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk about like how powerful the IDF is, what it is, and how they are enabled and allowed to do all of these things. But when people are like, no, I like us and our trademark, we like, well, actually it's our trademark, right?
Right.
And we want to protect it. So we're not gonna start with a gun, but if it comes to that, then what we finna do?
And also, I think it raises the point again of what happens when you have organizations like IDF attached to extremist political regimes that get to take cover under the cloak of legitimacy. Because in any other circumstance, what Bibi Netanyahu is doing, undermining the Israeli Supreme Court, appointing people to government positions who are corrupt, who are convicted criminals, who have been convicted of terrorizing Arab people. Like these are facts. These are things that he's done. If he were doing these things outside of the cloak of a legitimate government, he would be a terrorist. He is weakening the political system. He is enabling people who are rogue and who are morally bankrupt. And the only reason why he's getting away with this, and I want to say, even if we talk about what predated this, like we've been watching this happen under Netanyahu for years, and nobody has expressed outrage. And that's one of the problems with right-wing extremism. It's the same thing that happened here with Trump. When you are silent, that thing grows tentacles and it metastasizes, and it has implications beyond just what you want it to do for you, for your benefit. So you
Amber, hold on. One quick thing though. Yes, right-wing extremism, but also let's not forget the indifference on the left that is also enabling the same shit to happen. So let's
facts. We got 16 bars from Mr. I Stand With Israel, Joseph Biden. Okay. Listen, this is, yes, 100% that. But what I'm saying is one of the byproducts of radical political extremism is that it always leads to offshoots of violence. Like, look at what happened at the Capitol here on January 6th. Like, you cannot stop those factions from exploding in violence. So when you have people like Netanyahu, when you have people like Trump who are willing to do anything to tether themselves to the power they seek, to pander to the audience they cater to, violence is always going to ensue because they don't have no boundaries, which means that Netanyahu does not care about the fact that he is funneling money and resources to an organization that is problematic as hell, to an organization that has been listed as a terrorist organization, to an organization that they don't have legitimate elections, they don't have legitimate power. He's doing that to undermine the creation of a legitimate government because he wants power more than he wants anything else. And that is part of the problem with right-wing extremism. And so you can't talk about what happened Saturday without talking about that.
You're right. And for me, I just also have to maintain a focus on the conditions that created a Hamas, right? Like, because these things don't just come out of nowhere. And so if you want to point to white supremacy, if you want to talk about America's and the West's hand in creating the puppet out of Israel.
They lied.
Who lied for what?
Hamas is So let's go back to the Oslo Accords. Okay, let's do a little history lesson because remember.
Oh hell, here we go.
Remember when the Oslo Accords were first happening in the 90s? I want to say it was 92, 93. Okay, so they were in secret at first. The white peoples allegedly was trying to work together with Israel and Palestine to create a two-state solution. Right? So and then they became public. And so part of the deal that was struck in the Oslo Accords is that the Palestinian people would recognize the Israeli state as a legitimate government. And in exchange, the Israeli government was supposed to recognize the Palestinian Authority as the legitimate governing entity of the Palestinian people. To this day, Palestine is still not recognized as a legitimate nation state. So, of course, when you neuter the political entity that is supposed to be given political recognition, extremism is going to rise. So what happens after the Palestinian Authority is not really given the power that is promised in the Oslo Accords? Well, in addition to the first intifada and the second intifada, you have the creation of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO. Okay. And then you have, after that, Hamas. Okay. You got young Palestinian boys looking at the Muslim Brotherhood like, yo, I want to be like them. I'm not going to take no crap. Well, that is what happens when you lie and when you do not give people a voice in being represented in the governments that are supposed to be speaking for them. Extremism rises. And nobody has ever taken responsibility for the fact and stood up and said, yes, we lied in Oslo. We lied.
Amber, they would be spending the rest of their days talking about they lied. Girl, all they do is these people lie to us from. Come on now. Who's going to do that?
You're right.
For me, I just want to make it clear that usually when we're talking about deviancy, that this happens not just on its own, right? Deviancy usually has some sort of an event or some series of events that causes people to behave in the ways that they do, right? Very, very rarely do you have these things just popping up. People don't all of a sudden just take up arms and claim that they want to go to war. Like
That's correct.
it don't usually happen that way. And so, but if I watch the news, I think that's just what happened, right? You just have these violent Muslim people who are just inherently this way.
Correct.
As opposed to maybe you have people who for a very long time have been trying to get their liberation through the means that y'all tell us we can get our liberation, but it just ain't worked yet.
Correct.
And so finally I'm like, okay, well, maybe we can make it work in the terms that you will understand.
Yeah. And here's the thing. This also brings us to the point that one of the most insidious but effective tools in the white supremacy playbook is to constantly switch the conversation, right? So, when, for example, like it comes to Black people, like, oh, we're talking about dismantling Jim Crow. Oh, well, I have an idea. Why don't we do this instead? Why? Yeah. What we're asking for, right, is the ability for us to be able to go to school and not be segregated and not have to write it. Oh, I have an idea. Why don't we fund HBCUs? And it's like, that's great, but it's not quite what we asked for. Right?
We asked for.
Not quite what we asked for. It's the same thing with, it's like, oh, you guys are kind of discriminating against us with housing. It's like, oh, well, why don't we build some projects? Yeah, it's like, oh, it's not quite. And it's the same thing here as well. So one of the things, and people love to talk of this conversation about peace. And so one of the things that Oslo purported to do was to do this peace in exchange for land. And the Palestinian people were like, well, we're not asking for land, right? Because in our mind, this is our land already. So we're not asking for land. We are asking for legitimate recognition, the right to self-determination. We want to be liberated. We want to be our own government. We want self-determination. And then the white people brokering the peace are saying, we'll give you 70 more. We'll give you 70 more settlements if you stop fighting, right? And so that switching of the conversation, the way that we do that, it is so problematic, because then what happens is you have they didn't comply conversation, right? So then it becomes, well, we gave them the settlements.
You fear for your life? That's what it was.
Yeah, we gave them the settlements, but they're still fighting. And it's like, because they were never fighting for more settlements, because even if you give them the settlements, if you don't give the people the right to self-determination, what can happen is what is happening. The settlements are subject to being confiscated and taken from them at any moment, because the request on the table was for legitimacy. The Palestinian people were asking to be recognized. The Palestinian Authority, the PA, the deal on the table at Oslo was recognition of a Palestinian Authority. That was in 1993. It is the year of our Lord 2023. And that recognition has still not come.
Amber, has the West ever given people self-determination without blood?
Like, well, has the West ever kept its word?
Well, right, but I'm saying, if we use Haiti as an example, Haiti is only free and liberated because Haiti took up arms.
Correct.
Fought back. You know what I mean? And I just don't understand. We have not seen any example of people gaining their freedom without being violent. Like, I just don't, I don't know when I have seen it happen. And of course, I'm not a historian. I don't know. So please.
You're right. No, it's disingenuous to talk about peace, because what peace really means in this context is the absence of resistance. It does not mean two free autonomous states where people are able to flourish, where people are able to live healthy lives and live in countries where the people have the right to self-determination on both sides. What peace means is that the Palestinian people stop resisting occupation. And that is the problem. It's the same offer of peace given to Black people here. Take what you're given and stop fighting back. And that is not peace. That's passivity. like Martin Luther King said, peace is not just the absence of violence, it's the presence of justice. And there is no justice in this situation where you make a deal with somebody and you renege on it and you don't ever say why. And one thing
Well,
go ahead,
you're
go
not
ahead.
expecting nobody to say. You're not expecting nobody
No,
to
no,
say
no,
why.
I
You're not
don't.
expecting
But
them to.
I don't expect them to say why, but then you can't expect people to not get mad and fight back. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
Like,
I think they do expect people not to fight back, right? Because when you have all of the world's resources and armament at your disposal, you know that people take you seriously, right? Like,
well, that's
so
true.
you know that you just have to jump. And then so I think the West is like, oh, well, we weren't expecting that. So,
Yeah.
but again, I don't know how you do it without violence. But Amber, onto one of our favorite topics, the evangelicals.
Oh,
So,
child.
yes. So, here's the thing that's interesting to me, right? I think it's interesting that the evangelicals, who, in my estimation, believe that Jewish people are going to hell. So I think it's interesting that they are so pro-Israel when they think that all the people going to hell. So let's talk about the connections, the money, the relationship between the evangelicals and the state of Israel.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very interesting. You're right, because I actually never thought about that. Like, you see all these pray for Israel, and it's like, but pray for them for what? Because y'all said they don't believe in Jesus. So, but anyway,
Womp
no,
womp.
I do think it is interesting to see the evangelical machine mobilize to unequivocally back Israel on this eschatological basis, of some end
Please tell the
times.
people what the hell that mean.
Okay,
Because
y'all, basically, it's just
Amber told me eschatological, and I was like, I ain't never heard of that before. Amber, what that mean?
it's the rapture, the New Jerusalem, y'all know all the Black Baptist, New Jerusalem, basically that there will be a future redemption of Israel, not only in the cosmic heavens, but literally on earth. The evangelicals believe that there will be a physical redemption of the land of Israel, and it will be the place physically that Christ reigns from here on earth. And so, as the result, a lot of evangelical Christians take an interest in what is happening in Israel, not even really politically, but they believe it is an indicator of some forthcoming spiritual event. And many of them believe it. I've seen it firsthand on my timeline these last few days, that there is a unqualified, unequivocal duty of Christian people to side with Israel 100% of the time, to pray for Israel, to be in defense of Israel, in furtherance of the will of God, because that is the place where Jesus will reign from on earth at some forthcoming date. Erica, fix your face.
Well, Amber, I have such a hard time with this for a lot of reasons. Again, I just feel like behind closed doors, our evangelical friends think that the Jews are going to hell and they're laughing at them. So I think that's a thing. I also just, if I'm thinking about like this relationship of evangelicalism, how do you call it? Whatever. If I think about the relationship of evangelicals and Israel, especially for Black evangelicals, that is so hard for me because I'm sitting here thinking about Jesus. And I just have a hard time feeling like, okay, so we think that what Jesus would want would be people to be displaced, to be killed, to be cut off from society. Like that's what we think. So I guess from the perspective of somebody who identifies as Christian, I don't know what, um, it's hard for me to understand how all of the pieces fit together for them because, yeah.
What confuses me most about this is if the core belief driving this is that there is going to be a future or a forthcoming redemption of Israel, I would think that the impetus would be to call out the things that are happening in Israel that are unjust. You can stand with Israel when the things happen that should not happen. Absolutely. What happened Saturday was a tragedy. It's terrible. But there have been people who have been being killed for years, right? And even if we don't take the years, like let's just go back to 2021. I mean, the state of Israel has committed human rights violation documented by the United Nations. They have used phosphorus as a weapon of war against people in Gaza. That is a violation of international law. And so I would just say what confuses me is that if God is going to redeem Israel, then when Israel does things that are wrong, in the same way we stand with them when they are wrong, if they're going to be redeemed, isn't it the Christian's duty to call them out when they do things that they shouldn't be doing, like using unpermitted weapons on innocent civilians, like restricting air and I mean restricting access to food and restricting access to resources to innocent civilian people? Like that is not okay. And I just think that this whole idea that we have an unqualified loyalty to the state of Israel, it is mind-boggling. And we do not take that type of position with any other government except maybe the whack-ass United States. But there's nowhere else in the world where we take a position that nothing you do is wrong because you were once victims and wronged yourselves.
Well, but side note that you just made me think about in terms of evangelical and their unyielding support of Israel. That's also the message that I think a lot of evangelical women get related to their wayward husbands is unyielding support, right? So you also have like, hey, no matter what happens, support his ass. And I think in the same way, but that's why for me, this is not about Israeli people. This is not about Jewish people. This is about nation states and what they represent and the power that they bring to bear, and about nation states in Israel. So the IDF, because the other thing that people say is like, oh my gosh, all of these civilians that get killed. And of course, nobody here is saying that that is something that we want to happen. Absolutely against that, right? Like without a doubt. But I think people don't understand generally that many of the Israeli people are like trained in the IDF. So these are not just people like me and Amber who like just out here in the world. Even though a lot of people don't actually enroll in IDF anymore like they once did, there's still on the books mandatory inscription for men and women over 18, from like 18 to 49. So probably about 40% of their population is trained in the military, which I don't even know, like, is that a thing anywhere else in the world where you have like this high level of military training? And so we look at them a lot of times as innocents. And I'm like, these people like these not just regular people. And I think we forget that part too, but need to talk about like the IDF's long arm within the nation state, and also, of course, within these United States, and how it trains other law enforcement and military people that we have too. I mean, like they are built to like train people for war.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, but also it goes hand in hand with the fact that you really made the most important point earlier when you talked about following the money, because again, none of this is about the safety of Jewish or Israeli people, because if you recall, the United States also trained mujahideen, which would later become the Taliban, We armed Osama bin Laden when he was fighting against the Soviet Union. So we are equal opportunity.
Absolutely.
We train people and we fund people to destabilize regions, to accentuate and amplify and increase our own power in this region. And it's no different than what white people do, what the white supremacist political machine does in Black neighborhoods. Like, remember, we brought y'all the episode about the origin of what happened to Breonna Taylor? Like, they were looking for her ex-boyfriend, and all of that was related to gentrification. They were trying to serve a no-knock warrant because they really wanted to get him for drugs so they could condemn the house that he was selling drugs out of as a part of a revitalization effort in Louisville, Kentucky. They were destabilizing that neighborhood so that they could condemn it, take the homes by eminent domain, and gentrify the area. And so
internal colony.
Yes,
compared
these
to
are
this settler colony.
These are political tactics to amplify power and to drive revenue into the pockets of white supremacists. And they are using them not just here, but abroad as well. And so the United States is equal opportunity. They don't care if it's IDF. They don't care if it's Mujahideen. They don't care if it's Osama bin Laden. They will fund and militarize whoever they think they need to in order to get the strategic advantage that they seek. And that is the problem with how Israel as a modern state came to be in the first place. They were trying to destabilize the region so that they could get a hand up. And they will do it anywhere to anybody at any time. Period.
Side note, just because you made me think about it, Amber, I was pissed just last week because I read a headline that talked about how Breonna Taylor's ex-boyfriend just got arrested on drug charges. And I was like, there is no way that this man and his arrest is news. Posthumously, they are trying to be like, we told y'all we should have killed her because see, look at him now. And it's disgusting that that woman is in her grave. And no, the media is still like, we're going to show y'all that what the police did was absolutely justified because look at what he's doing or what he's done. And he ain't even had no trial yet. Whew. Anyway.
Yeah. So I hope that, if you haven't learned anything this last hour, what I hope you learn is that this is not about Jewish people not having the right to live in safety, not having the right to have a homeland. And this is also not about Palestinian people not having the right to live in safety or not having the right to a homeland. This is about the common enemy to us all, the common enemy that threatens the freedom and liberation of all people who do not fit neatly under the umbrella of whiteness in this world. And that is the white supremacist political machine driven by the West and driven by the United States of America. And until we stop that machine, these things are going to keep happening. It's going to keep happening.
They are. I don't even know, Amber, like, that's a whole lot. I, like you, I am interested to see what happens. I'm interested to keep seeing the twists and the turns that the media and the political leadership do as they play in our faces and talk about the things that they're doing that we know are wrong, that we know are harmful, that we know will end up with people dead. So sadly, I think, from this position, I just watch and wait to see what happens. But again, I don't know where it's happened without violence before. So I don't know how that works.
Yeah. And if you have any takeaway from this, what I hope is that you will keep your thinking cap on, your critical thinking cap on as this saga unfolds and not become subject to the propaganda that makes it difficult for you to see the larger picture at play here. It is not anti-Semitic to say that Palestinian people don't deserve to live in an open air prison. It is not anti-Semitic to say that the Palestinian people have a right to self-determination. And it is not anti-Semitic to say that the state of Israel has committed atrocities against the Palestinian people historically that have been in violation of international law, that have run afoul of every common courtesy and every standard of just basic human decency that we have set in this world. They have done that. And it is also not wrong to say that Hamas ain't shit, and you do not drop a bomb at a music festival and kill innocent people while they go out to celebrate. You don't do that. It is not wrong to say that just because you have more power than everybody else around you, that you shouldn't use it to make the conditions of the people who are living there worse by cozying up to people that you know are unrighteous and who mean them no good just so you can get more power. So Hamas ain't shit either. But I just want to say that don't get wookied into thinking that this is all a one-sided thing, and that in order for you to be a good global citizen, that you must unequivocally condemn one group and unequivocally support the other no matter what. Because that's not true. And at the end of the day, what we all have to be concerned with is how do we destroy the systems that are causing this to happen everywhere around us? Because that's really our real work. That's our real work.
And as Black people, for us to understand and not answer the question of what this got to do with me. I understand that. I guess this will. Well, you got some homework, Amber, or no?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I have. There's one bit of homework, and listen, I'm not really committed to homework. Y'all know I don't check it. I don't grade it. It's a completion grade. But this homework, I want y'all to do it. The homework this week is if you find yourself sitting in church on Sunday, the coming Sunday after this episode is released, and your pastor starts to say some bull crap about supporting Israel in the name of Jesus, I want you to do what the man did in Malcolm X in the movie. I want you to stand up and be like, get your hand out of my pocket. And I want you to make a scene, okay? I want you to shut that shit down however you have to. That is the only piece of homework. And it's of all the homework I've ever given, I want you to do this homework. Because when you go to church Sunday and your pastor start talking that bull baloney, it is up to you to be the change you want to see in the world and stand up and shut that shit down. And then come back and tell us so we can talk about it. Okay?
Yes.
It's okay.
Let us interview you if you get put out of church.
If we want you on the show, church, that's okay. You can come. You can come go to Brokish Baptist Church of the Living Holy God in Christ.
Y'all, as Black people, we got a lot of stuff going on, and it can be very easy to be like, I don't know what that got to do with me and my Black ass family. But we want y'all to know that as we keep saying, liberation is a group project. We are all oppressed by the same regime, and the things that are happening in other parts of the world are the same things that are happening here to us and our people. And so when we can have solidarity, when we can figure out how to get from under the clutches of the regime, we can all win. And like Amber said, it's the same playbook. It's the same soup. They warming the shit over. But y'all, it is time for us to turn over the tables because we got to find something else. Thanks for tuning in. We look forward to catching up with you on the next episode of Brokish.
All right, good people. Thanks for listening to Brokish. For more episodes, visit us at brokish.com or subscribe, and Brokish will get direct deposited into your favorite podcast app on the 1st and 15th. Share Brokish with your friends and join the conversation on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Music for Brokish is Come Get Some by Blank and Kit. Until next time, goodbye and good luck.
They say when you wear Black Power Media gear, you can accomplish anything. You play any and every position. From coaching, to kicking, to receiving, to running and juking. And Oh my goodness, let's see that again in slow motion. Get off me. And you're gonna have a lot of haters coming at you, but what you gotta do is you gotta shake them off, and get to your goal and accomplish it. And when that's done, it's a beautiful thing. I'm talking about going hard, extra, for that extra point. And when it's done beautifully, you talking about touchdown. Oh, and the crowd goes wild and they're celebrating with you and everything. Man, let's see that again. Nice.
Black Power Media, baby. That's how we do it.
Now go to blackpowermedia.org and get you some of that gear. Empower yourself today. Yeah.